Yeah, so I'm Ben, Brewmaster Ben, the head brewer from Truman's. This is Sandro, the second brewer from Truman's, and James, our brewery assistant or assistant brewer. We run all of the brewing of the new Truman's brewery in Hackney Wick. Truman's was a very famous brewery, big brewery in East London, founded in 1666. In the 1800s was one of the biggest breweries of the world, but sadly closed down in 1989, to then be re-established in 2010 by Mr. James Morgan, who built the brand by contract brewing for 2 years and then built a brand new brewery in Hackney Wick, and this is where we started or joined the team, and now are brewing our own beer in East London again. So Truman's is back on the map and hopefully will be as big as it used to be at one point again. We're not too far away from where the original brewery was, but on a more industrial site in Hackney Wick now.
After university I did something completely unrelated to brewing. I worked in shipping, I worked in an office. I'd always loved my beers. I worked in the drinks trade before but never in production side, and I basically just got the itch and I couldn't really stop thinking about working in a brewery. So I left shipping. I worked in a pub for a while to kind of build up my knowledge of kind of serving beers and beer styles, and then luckily I got a job with Ben at London Fields, because Ben used to be the head brewer there, and an opportunity came up at Truman's and I applied for it, and luckily Ben obviously liked what I did there and took me on. So yeah, that was my journey.
That's great. In my case, I work in Italy. I began my brewing adventure in Italy in Brewfest, and when I came here in Essex in a very little brewery and vineyard in Essex, in Felstar Brewery, and then I came here in London, and thanks Ben.
Came in at the deep end. It was it was a special story too. We literally just started brewing. Sandro came and got straight into it, and put down an amazing week of hard work and got a job and it was great. And we're just building a really good team. It's great.
Yeah.
As we can see, sitting here together on a weekend too proves the fact that we're
I think the team is great, because for 40 bars kit, free, organized, I think
you've got to be very organised with a 3 kit.
Definitely.
You get one of the great things about it is there's just 3 of you there, and you get a real sense of just how much beer we're putting out, and the work that you go into. The work you put in, you can really see what it's going into and when it's going out of the side, which is cool.
We've got 40 barrels. We brew at the moment 3 to 4 times a week. I'm in charge of all of the brewing. Most of the brewing Sandro does, and we share racking, stacking and whatever has to be done around that. 100% cask at the moment. Plans for the future are to definitely bottle some beer and get some keg beer out there too, because that's where the markets are going. But at the moment I think it's very interesting to actually be a 100% cask brewery, what's fairly unusual because everybody's either doing key cakes or bottling their beers.
It's a really exciting project for all of us, I think. I grew up.
It's a good project.
If you basically it's pretty inspiring when you walk around London and you just see Truman's pubs everywhere. Obviously you've got the old Truman's brewery on Brick Lane, and just talking to kind of older people, who remember the brewery and what it was, kind of gives you something to aspire to, and it makes it really exciting. I kind of grew up drinking cask beer, grew up in Sussex, drinking Harvey's and more hoppy stuff like Dark Star, and so
at the moment with the idea to hopefully grow and maybe be selling all of England, all of the UK, and hopefully internationally too at one point. So I think we've got the base to do that in the future. We basically together have created some of the beers that we are already brewing, our seasonals. A big part of Truman's is that they have a massive archive of old recipes, and we sort of do try to build a bridge between the old recipes, give them a modern twist and bring them back. We brewed one double export stout called London Keeper. It was the first brew of something very special and was inspired by an old recipe from Truman's. So that's one way of approaching it, is taking old recipes and redeveloping them, giving them a bit of a modern twist, and then sort of really putting our brewing knowledge, or my brewing knowledge, into it. On the other side there'll be our sales guys, will say, well, it's this time of the year, we can do with that beer, can you brew me this type of beer? Then I'll sit down, think about it, then my ideas, we will sit down, I'll hand them over to Sandro, and then Sandro will give it his twist. And we've now started all three sitting down together and actually talking about what we think, sniffing and rubbing hops and sort of trying to find out, oh, that's great, that will fit in. And it's sort of, I think it's great when we actually develop a beer together, because there's more minds on it than just one, and I think that's what brings out a really, really well balanced and good beer, because that's our main focus, is to always get a really nice, seasonable, sessionable, drinkable and balanced beer. And up to now it has worked every time, because the beers that we have created are just flying out. Well, it's great. And it's a great situation, and it's always great to be on Twitter, Facebook or whatsoever, and there to read about what other people think about our beers, so we know we're actually hitting the taste of other people's too.
Yeah, and I think we're really lucky in that we basically have access to the old Truman's yeast.
Yeah.
We are the only brewery who can use that yeast, so it really brings a nice kind of thematic connection towards all the beers. Our beers all taste different, but I think as soon as you have one, you can be like, that's a Truman's beer.
Yeah, it's all. I think the best way of developing something is actually talking about it, and then getting your final product and saying, that's what I want to do, that's what I read in books, that's the way it has to be done. Because that's never the way it's going to be. That's what makes me probably quite un-German. I don't need a rule to develop a beer.
Yeah, with the original yeast too is
Cool.
Interesting.
It's interesting. Yeah,
But it has been great to, and actually to see how we can develop beers around that yeast. And it's been interesting to find out how the yeast actually works. I mean, we've sat there and split our heads over some questions. What could it actually be? So
Yeah.
you sort of build up a relationship to a yeast. That's quite nice.
Yeah.
Using quite a lot of British hops, and what is nice, because you now notice that other brewers are realising that you can use British hops, because you can make your life easy and just use some Cascade. And don't get me wrong, Cascade is a fantastic hop, and all the American hops are fantastic hops, but they do make your life quite easy, because you just whack them in and you, wow, flavour bomb, done. And there are actually some really interesting British hops out there that we've sort of developed some beers around too. That's great, and it's fun to find new hop varieties too. I mean, now there's sort of a bit of a renaissance in hop growing too. What's really interesting.
I mean, it's good to support that. I think it's like an English brewery. It's good to support those hop farmers who are, you know, just down in Kent or something like that, in Sussex.
Yeah.
It's to be fun to build a relationship with them and the suppliers.
Yeah, or you can actually go down and see the hop farm.
Yeah.
as a famous saying is, there's no bad beers. There's only beers that don't taste as good as the others. I always say. No, you have to. I think you have to try everything, but of course, the one thing I've found, and it's exactly the same as me too, is I always think that the beer that you grow up with will somehow still always be your favourite beer and the beer you always go back to. For me, that is Coach. I'm from Cologne, Germany. That's where I was born and brewed. So I grew up drinking Coach mainly. Think that's still a fairly underrated beer, and a beer that's over here in the UK would do really well, and maybe there might be some coming at some point. Yeah, and Coach wise, probably my favourite one has got to be Pefken and Mühlen. For a city of 1 million, we've still got 9 breweries, I think, in Cologne, so it's quite a big variety. Yes, but the other point is there are reasons why I did move away from Cologne and from Germany, and one reason is probably hops. So I do like different types of hops too, and not just German hops. And yes, coming over here, we just there's so many different styles of beers, and our brewery is built on very traditional British style beers, but we're bringing in a lot of innovation, so it's a nice mixture of tradition and innovation, and they're developing sort of newer style beers too, but we'll talk about that later. For your favourite beers?
I think every beer has a good point, you know, good things, and yeah, personally I prefer the black beer, so Schwarz, Porter, Brown Ale, but I love all the beer, because I think every beer has a good point, you know. The
Cheers to that.
Cheers. I don't know, the drinkable, the Pilsner is very drinkable, a Porter has very good taste, the malty taste, or if you like a hoppy taste, the IPA is one of the best, or IPA. I think there isn't a best beer or worst beer.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a very huge answer. Yeah, but
there's always a beer for a certain situation too.
Yeah,
often.
yeah.
It depends if it's really cold in the winter or really hot in the summer, or.
Because for example, in the summer, if I drink a porter or a oatmeal stout, yeah, it's very good, but maybe it's better a Pilsner or a Kölsch or a lager for you.
Yeah, you guys just said it's an impossible question. The more you kind of learn about beer, the more you kind of appreciate new styles, and you want to kind of explore new styles. And I always find, like, 1 month I'll be like, oh, I love this type of beer, the next month I'm kind of thinking more about that type of beer. But I think Ben's right, and it says the beer you grew up on is the beer you kind of you like the most. And I kind of washed up at a pub when I was like 13, 14, and my brother was the barman there, and the 2 constant beers on were Harvey's Best, which is a Sussex Best Bitter, and Larkin's Pale, which is a Kent Pale Ale. And yeah, those will always be the beers when I, you know, which they're like home for me, so they obviously got a real soft spot in my heart. But saying that, I love a lovely hop aroma. I really like the New Zealand hops, and they're kind of tropicalness. But also a kind of soft spot for really nice clovey wheat beer. To be honest,
The best song probably has got to be the Hanson Brothers. We're brewing. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah, that's great. Give me my home brew. This is great. We're brewing. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah. doing the brew. Great, yeah, music and beer. I mean, there's a head brewer that I worked with before said the one thing or the things you want to hear in a brewery is the rattling of the pumps, maybe a bit of bubbling, or your lane mark heating up, and the brewer whistling or singing. And I think that's great, and it hits the spot. In our brewery there's quite a lot of singing that goes on too, so it's quite interesting who will bring the first song sometimes, I think, because one will sing one song and then suddenly everyone will just like...
For the rest of the day.
Yeah.
It drives you mental.
It drives you mental. There's a really nice German word for it called earworm. So someone always dictates the earworm in the morning. And I mean, otherwise I think, of course, music and beer fits together, because music and beer, you start drinking beer usually there where there's music around it. And probably like beer-wise, I like it very... I'm very open about beer, what you can drink. It's pretty the same with music too, because you have to listen to every music once. There's definitely music I don't like, so but most of the music somehow, if I can find something, there's always something, like you said about beers actually, there's always something good that you can find in a certain type of music direction or music that's there, and it doesn't just have to be a heavy breakcore tune all the time, it can be a nice dub tune too, so it's... And I love jungle, I love dub, breakcore, and I love punk rock, sort of the musics that I like, so that's all, and then even all mixed together is even great. So yeah, and I don't know, there's so many, it's really difficult to say that song or that song. I do like beer related songs too, as long as they're not German folk music or or American country music, that's great.
When I was a home brewer, I used to listen Bob Dylan when I brew. Yeah, very relaxing, you know. You can brew Dylan. You can brew 1-2 times a week, a days, but it's fantastic, very relaxing. And the best was when the rain was full and you brew. You know, it's quite fantastic.
Cool,
yeah,
great.
But it's interesting to beer and music. For example, if you listen hardcore, you prefer one kind of beer at another kind of beer. For me, because
so
your mind
mood dependent, isn't it?
Yeah, because your mind is different maybe, and maybe you can smell different flavor and I don't know.
Manipulates you.
Yeah.
So I like my house, my electronic music and stuff like that. My mum was a opera singer, so I got a slight classical twist, which I don't really bring to the brewery much. But like beer and music for me, basically what reminds me of most is that my old brewery we used to bottle by hand. There'd be 3 of us in a bottling line, you know, 4-head filler or a 6-head filler, one guy filling it, one guy capping it, one guy boxing it. And music then was kind of the most important thing because it takes you like 4 hours to do it.
And that's when I always put the jungle radio on because they work faster.
So that was great, just like bobbing out some techno there, or just a lot of I had a good friend of that brewery, he loved his kind of London post-punk, like early 80s post-punk. I love that stuff as well, so we just play aggressive English post-punk and just slam through it. The beer music's great, but I think just getting a bit pissed and listening to music is great. Does it have to be beer?
Yeah.
It can be anything.
This is great. We're brewing. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah. doing the brew. Great, there.
Oh, man. I love this.
Yeah, man, that's my altar.
That is awesome. DVD, great.
Same guys do No Means No.